Loyalty is rare. That is not cynicism. That is mathematics. Most people are loyal only until it costs them something. They will swear forever, always, till the end. Those words roll easily off the tongue in moments of comfort, when loyalty requires nothing but sentiment. But loyalty is tested only under fire, when temptation offers a better deal, or hardship demands sacrifice. And when that test comes, most fail. The cruel truth is that enemies rarely destroy us. Strangers cannot cut deep enough. The deepest betrayals come from those who once swore to protect us. Take Julius Caesar, for example. Julius Caesar was not just a general. He was Rome's most brilliant tactician, its unrivaled politician, and for many, its savior. His conquest of Gaul brought unimaginable wealth and glory. His soldiers adored him, his people worshipped him, and his clemency, his habit of pardoning defeated enemies, earned him a reputation of almost godlike magnanimity. But mercy creates debt, and debts breed resentment. The very men who owed their lives and careers to Caesar grew to hate him for it. To them, his generosity was a chain. His rise to dictator for life was the final insult. They cloaked their motives in noble language, defending the Republic. But beneath that facade lay fear, envy, and pride. Among them were the men Caesar trusted most. Brutus, whom he called the noblest Roman and treated with the affection of a son. Cassius, once pardoned after fighting against him but still poisoned by jealousy. And Decimus, a general he regarded as family. They did not conspire against him as enemies, but as friends. Warnings came. His wife dreamt of his death. A soothsayer told him plainly, "Beware the Ides of March." Even strangers saw the storm gathering, but Caesar dismissed them all. Pride blinded him. Fate, he believed, was fixed, and loyalty, his loyalty to others, he assumed would be returned. It wasn't. When Caesar entered the Senate that day, he walked not into a council, but into a slaughterhouse. Surrounded, pinned, and stabbed from every side, he fought to defend himself until he saw Brutus, the man he trusted most, raise a dagger. And in that instant, something inside him collapsed. Ancient sources disagree on his final words. Some say silence. Others claim he whispered to Brutus. Shakespeare immortalized it as et tu, Brute. Whether spoken or not, the meaning was clear. Betrayal cuts deeper than blades. The hidden logic of betrayal is brutal but predictable. Caesar's death was not merely a political act, it was a psychological inevitability. Loyalty shifts with convenience. The conspirators stood by him while his star was rising. But when allegiance became costly, betrayal followed. Loyalty bends under temptation. The lure of power, influence, and freedom outweighed devotion. And loyalty collapses under hardship. To remain at Caesar's side meant risking their own lives, and few men are built to withstand that kind of fire. Betrayal, then, is never an accident. It is a law of human behavior. The brutal lesson that history and psychology agree on is that loyalty is one of the rarest currencies in human existence. Most people pay lip service to it, but abandon it when storms arrive. Caesar's greatest mistake was not arrogance, nor even ambition. It was assuming that mercy and trust would guarantee loyalty. They don't. The men who killed him proved the truth. The greatest wounds come not from enemies, but from those closest to our hearts. And so the lesson is simple, cruel, undeniable. If you are powerful, expect betrayal. If you value loyalty, know it will be tested by fire. And if you find someone who remains when it hurts, protect them above all else, because loyalty, once proven, is rarer than love, rarer than friendship, rarer even than power itself. Betrayal isn't rare, it's inevitable. And the cruelest part? It doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from the people who once stood beside you, smiling, chanting your cause. Even Nelson Mandela, the man the world worships as a saint, tasted that poison. His story isn't just about forgiveness. It's about knives in the dark handed to the enemy by those he trusted most. In the 1940s and 50s, Mandela rose through the African National Congress with Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Albert Luthuli, brothers in arms pushing non-violent resistance against apartheid. But Sharpeville changed everything. Blood in the streets, a government firing on unarmed protesters. Unity cracked. Some clung to peace. Mandela chose war. He built Umkhonto we Sizwe, a military wing bent on sabotage. That decision didn't just divide the ANC. It put a target on his back, outside and inside. The year was 1962. Mandela slips out of the country, seeking support abroad. He returns in secret. Hours later, arrested. Too perfect, too clean. History calls it bad luck. But evidence whispers another story. Someone close leaked his movements. A comrade turned informant. 1 year later, the Lily's Leaf raid. Police stormed the safe house. Files, documents, weapons, all exposed. Once again, too precise to be coincidence. Another betrayal. Another insider. Mandela wasn't destroyed by the enemy. He was delivered to them. Prison turned Mandela into a symbol. The problem with symbols? They eclipse men. Outside the prison walls, the movement fractured. The Pan-Africanist Congress accused him of selling out nationalism. Rival factions in exile whispered that his captivity was useful. Better Mandela locked away than stealing their spotlight. And the regime? They didn't need brute force. They planted spies, bought loyalty, broke comrades until they bled information. The war wasn't only fought in the streets. It was fought in minds, with fear, ego, ambition as the weapons. When Mandela finally walked free in 1990, the world saw triumph. But freedom only revealed more knives. Radicals branded him a traitor for negotiating peace. Young lions in the ANC resented his calm, his forgiveness. They wanted fire, not restraint. And then the personal blow, Winnie, the wife who had carried his name for decades, infidelity, scandal, blood on her hands. Their marriage collapsed under betrayal. Victory never erased the poison. It only exposed new sources of it. But here lies the genius. Mandela's weapon wasn't vengeance. It was discipline. He understood the psychology of resentment, that it corrodes the one who holds it, not the one it's aimed at. Resentment, he said, is like drinking poison and hoping it will kill your enemies. Forgiveness wasn't kindness. It was survival, a cold strategy to strip betrayal of its power. Mandela's story hides a truth most people don't want to face. Betrayal is not the exception. It's the rule. Your allies will fracture. Your movement will splinter. The people you love will fail you. The only question is whether you collapse under it or weaponize it. Mandela chose the latter. That's why he endured. And if betrayal could reach him, don't fool yourself, it will reach you too. Loyalty is a myth people tell themselves when times are good. Steve Jobs learned this the hard way. Betrayed not by rivals, but by the very allies he had invited into his inner circle. The year was 1976. A garage in Los Altos. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Ronald Wayne. Wozniak had the engineering brilliance. Jobs had vision, design, obsession. Together, they created Apple. The Apple I, the Apple II, machines that dragged computing out of the labs and into living rooms. By 25, Jobs was a multi-millionaire. Apple went public. He had changed the world. But success doesn't just attract praise. It attracts pressure. Investors, shareholders, boards. They wanted stability, not volatility. And Jobs, barefoot dreamer turned CEO, was the opposite of stable. So he went hunting for someone to steady the ship. He found John Scully, the polished PepsiCo executive. Jobs lured him with a single line of psychological warfare. Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world? Scully said yes. And with that, Jobs unknowingly handed his fate to the man who would later bury him. In the year 1984, the Macintosh launches. The 1984 Super Bowl ad becomes legend. Apple looks unstoppable. But behind the curtain, sales stumble. The Macintosh isn't moving fast enough. Jobs is mercurial, relentless, brutal with his team. His brilliance terrifies the very executives he brought in to manage him. By 1985, the board is restless. Jobs makes his move, plotting a coup to remove Scully. But Scully discovers the plan. He rallies the board. In a single meeting, the balance of power flips. The board strips Jobs of all authority. At 30, he is exiled from the company he created. This was no clean business decision. It was betrayal dressed as professionalism. Jobs had elevated these men, given them their power, trusted them with his vision. And when the moment came, they chose safety, not loyalty. They chose the company without its founder. Why did it happen? Fear, ego, ambition. Jobs was a genius, but geniuses are dangerous. They disrupt, they unsettle. Boards don't want danger, they want predictability. Scully didn't just want to save Apple, he wanted to save himself. Jobs' volatility threatened his control. Better to cut him out than risk losing the throne. It's the same pattern that repeats across history. When visionaries clash with managers, the board sides with comfort. Loyalty has no place in the balance sheet. Jobs vanished into the desert of Silicon Valley. He built Next, too advanced, too expensive, destined to fail. He bought Pixar, an animation studio on the edge of collapse. For a decade, he was dismissed as a has-been, the barefoot dreamer turned fallen star. But exile forged him. Pixar rose with Toy Story. Next, though commercially weak, carried ideas that would later become the skeleton of modern Apple. And then, fate twisted. In 1997, Apple, bleeding money, directionless, acquired Next. Jobs returned, not as the outcast, but as the savior. The man they once betrayed became the man who resurrected them. The board that had cut him down became a footnote in his legend. Under his second reign, Apple birthed the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone. The company didn't just recover, it became the most valuable in the world. This is the final irony of betrayal. Sometimes it doesn't destroy you. Sometimes it gives you the fire to burn everything down and rebuild even stronger. Steve Jobs' story hides a truth that cuts through business, politics, and personal life. Loyalty is fragile. It lasts only as long as it's convenient. The allies you empower today may be the executioners of your tomorrow. Jobs learned that loyalty cannot be demanded. It can only be tested. And most people fail that test. So remember this. If betrayal could reach Caesar in Rome, Mandela in prison, and Jobs in Silicon Valley, don't fool yourself. It will reach you too. The only question is whether it breaks you or forges you. Loyalty is a promise made when it costs nothing. The moment sacrifice is required, most retreat. Princess Diana's life reveals this truth in the harshest light. Betrayal rarely comes from strangers. It comes from those closest, those entrusted with your heart. The year was 1981. Lady Diana Spencer, 19 years old, becomes engaged to Prince Charles, heir to the British throne. The world watched as the people's princess entered a fairy tale marriage. Nearly 1 billion eyes bore witness to the pomp, the pageantry, the perfection. But the cracks had formed long before the vows. Charles, 32, had never truly let go of Camilla Parker Bowles, a woman he had loved for years. A bracelet intended for Camilla found its way into Diana's hands. A whisper of betrayal before the marriage even began. Diana herself summarized it years later. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. The betrayal was not a single act. It was continuous. Emotional abandonment, secret meetings, intimate calls, a man legally wed but emotionally absent. Marriage, in this context, was not partnership, it was performance. Diana's youth, charm, and warmth contrasted sharply with the cold calculations of royal protocol. The monarchy prized image over substance, optics over empathy. Her popularity with the public, her authenticity, her ability to connect with ordinary people was a threat. Those who were supposed to protect her, to guide her, became silent observers. The palace walls became a gilded cage, isolating her from genuine support. Criticism replaced care, suppression replaced compassion. The betrayal extended beyond Charles. The institution itself wielded its power subtly but effectively. Emotional suffering became a liability, a secret to be managed. Loyalty from the system was conditional, transactional, and fleeting. By the 1990s, the fractures in Diana's life could no longer be concealed. In 1992, Andrew Morton's Diana, Her True Story, exposed the depths of her misery, detailing her battles with eating disorders, depression, and the infidelity she had endured. The following year, leaked recordings between Charles and Camilla confirmed the affair, intensifying Diana's humiliation. In 1994, Charles publicly admitted his infidelity, and by 1995, Diana's BBC interview laid bare the betrayal, not just within her marriage, but entrenched throughout the system surrounding her. When the divorce came in 1996, it was inevitable. More than a legal separation, it was a stark acknowledgement that loyalty had failed her in every place it should have mattered. Here is the harsh truth Diana's story reveals. Loyalty is situational, and words of devotion are cheap. True action under pressure is rare. Power corrupts allegiance. When personal ambition or institutional image is at stake, even those closest can betray. Trust is always a gamble, for those we welcome into our inner circle can wound more deeply than any enemy. Visibility invites envy, and authenticity, warmth, or skill often threaten systems built on control and hierarchy. Betrayal rarely arrives as a dramatic dagger to the heart. It creeps in subtly, continuously, and corrosively through whispers, omissions, and choices that slowly but inevitably erode trust. Princess Diana was adored by millions, yet abandoned by those who should have protected her. Her suffering was private, her betrayal intimate, and her lessons universal. Loyalty is rare. It is tested not in comfort, but in sacrifice. It survives not when skies are clear, but when storms demand endurance. Most will fail. And when it fails, it leaves wounds not easily healed. In the end, the world may remember the crown and the glamour, but those closest to her knew the bitter cost of misplaced trust. The lesson is simple, inescapable, and brutal. Loyalty, once betrayed, cannot be bought back. It is a treasure few can truly offer, and even fewer can uphold.